This is the Wednesday, October the 7th, 2009 Platting Board meeting. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Benjamin Roll. Anastasia Taylor. Here. Art Clark.
Here.
Ellen McKay.
Here.
Michael Krieger.
Here.
Jody Moses.
Here.
Carol Stolpe.
Here.
Lendell Story.
Here.
We have a quorum, and so the first order of business on the agenda is approval of action summaries. We have action summaries for Monday, August the 24th, Monday, August the 31st, Wednesday, September the 2nd, Monday, September the 7th, Monday, September the 14th, and Monday, September the 28th, all of 2009. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Clark, is there a second? Mr. Krieger, is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the action summaries are approved. No minutes on this agenda. Special order of business, are there any disclosures or conflicts of interest? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of all matters before the board that do not require a public hearing. All items shall be approved by motion without debate. Does any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, can I have a positive motion on the consent agenda? Mr. Clark, is there a second? Ms. Taylor, is there any objection to approval of the consent agenda? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. 2 time extensions and 2 postponements. No old business, which takes us to our one and only case on new business. Case S11770-1, Silver Hill Estate Subdivision Number 1. Here we have staff's presentation, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The property is undeveloped. Sorry, do I need to repeat anything? Sorry. This is a 12-acre, more or less, subdivision of Tract 1D into 2 lots. The property is undeveloped. It's zoned R8. That requires a minimum 5-acre lot size and 300-foot lot width, which is met with this preliminary plat. The property is undeveloped. It's located in Eagle River, north of both Upper Skyline Drive and Timberline Drive, and west of Golden Eagle Drive. This subdivision has been before the Platting Board on 2 previous occasions. There are now 7 lots. With this preliminary plat, if approved, there would be 8 lots. 2 of the lots are developed with single-family dwellings, and public water and sewer are not available to this subdivision, so the lots will be served with on-site utilities. This subdivision is served with a private road system. Variances that are requested tonight for dedication and lots adjoining a public street are the same variances that were requested and previously approved with 2 prior platting actions. The variances were granted based on the fact that there were no dedicated public road rights-of-way to provide access to this property. The only legal access was obtained via a 60-foot wide access easement that the property owner obtained from across Lot 1A, Block 2, Eagles Nest subdivision. That lot does adjoin the northeast corner of the Silverwood Hill Estate subdivision. Now, PM&E has visited the site, and they did raise a concern regarding the ability of emergency response vehicles to navigate this private road. The private road is maintained by the homeowners. It is not maintained by the municipality of Anchorage. These concerns were relayed to the owner, who requested that AFD, the fire department, visit the site. So the largest firefighting apparatus, firefighting truck from Fire Station 11 in Eagle River, they took the largest fire truck to the site. The site is gated, but the fire truck, their key did not work, the Knox box, but they were able to get through the gate with minimal effort and minimal time delay, and they were able to navigate the road. Now, there are comments from the fire plan review on page 50, as well as one of the firemen who went there provided comments that were placed on the table tonight. We did not receive those comments from Eagle River AFD until Monday after the packets were delivered. But they gave a detailed account of their observations and their conclusions. Both fire plan review and this fire crew had one caveat, and that in snowy conditions, response time may not be as quick, and access will depend on the road conditions. Staff made a request of the property owner to tell the board what kind of maintenance that they do provide. And there is an email from the property owner. They do have a contract, but for the last 5 years they have maintained snowplow and sanding so that they can maintain the roads between visits from their contractor in the event of a sudden snowstorm, or if there's a light dusting of snow, in order to keep the roads passable. So to the greatest extent possible, and that is part of the homeowners' documents, and to the greatest extent possible, the homeowners, all two of them, are doing their best to keep that road passable year-round. And I did speak with one of the fire plan reviewers, and they told me verbally, well, in winter conditions on the hillside, you're always going to have that problem, whether it's a municipal road, municipally maintained, privately maintained. You're going to have glaciation problems in the high elevations. Now, one of the homes in the subdivision, that property owner decided to install a sprinkler system. And to that extent, there was a note proposed to be placed on the plat that the municipality strongly recommends that all homes be constructed with sprinkler systems, and the homeowners' documents were also changed to include that wording. The municipality can't require it. Number one, it's a private road, but number two, sprinkling becomes a requirement when there are more than 30 dwelling units on a road. So that was advisory only, but it is recommended, and the property owner is in full concurrence that it really is to the benefit of any homeowner on the hillside. In regard to the approval of the variances, the standards appear to be met as much as they were met when the board approved the variances for a private road system in the past. There really is no conforming alternative. So the department does recommend approval of the variances and approval of the plats subject to 8 conditions, and that recommendation is contained on pages 9 through 11 of the packet. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Are there any questions of staff? Madam Chair. Ms. Taylor. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Ms. Taylor?
Thank you. Through the chair, Was the original road constructed under a subdivision agreement?
I don't think so, because it wasn't built to it was not required to be built to municipal standards. But let's see, I've got the history of this. On pages 78, 79, and 80 is the original summary of action for this property. And a subdivision agreement was not required at that time. And that was in 2001 with the first plat creating 4 lots. And the second plat, the summary of action, is on pages 59 through 61. And there was not a requirement for subdivision agreement at that time.
So would we have any inspection on this? Do we have any documentation of what the road is made of or what the final grades are?
Through the chair, Ms. Taylor, no, there weren't any inspections because this is not a municipally maintained road. It is a private road. The comments from that were included in the handout that was put on the table today, apparently there was sufficient road base to support the weight of a fire truck, and also they experienced, the steepest grade they encountered was 9 to 10%. And 10%, I believe, is the standard in the International Fire Code.
That was the only section that I saw, the comments from the fire department, that was the only section that I saw that referenced what material the road is and what the grades are, unless I missed it. Is there anything else in the packet that would discuss?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Ms. Stolpe, did you? Yes, thank you. Ms. O'Brien, help me with this, if you would, please. The sprinklers are not required if there are fewer than 30 houses on the street. And just help me to understand how that's particularly identified, because of the access is Silverwood Hill Drive, and then that looks to me from this map that I'm looking at on page 15, then there would be a road that would be constructed to go into these properties, which would then be a private drive. And I know we had this issue come up once before, where we had to kind of figure out how that definition of a road with 30 or more properties, what road is that? I can't remember the case we had where we dealt with this. So for purposes of this discussion and the immunity requirement on the sprinkler systems, where does Silverwood Hill Drive fall in that?
Through the chair, Silverwood Hill Drive is within the subdivision itself. And so there's, at most with this plat, if it's to be approved, would be 8 dwelling units. I think possibly it would have come into concern is that when there is phased development, when you initially construct a road, for instance, like if this property owner owned much more land and this was a phased development, there's only 8 lots here. But if the road were to continue to be extended, at some point 30 dwelling units would be reached. At that point, sprinklers would be required.
Okay, so, so for purposes of this discussion, the only road that's an issue is a Silverwood Hill Drive?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Clark?
Excuse my ignorance, but having not dealt with this before, but having been dealing with the sprinkler issues, I'm not aware of where it's required. I know that single-family houses are not required to be sprinklered. Is there something in municipal code that supersedes that?
Madam Chair, Mr. Clark, it's in the International Fire Code, and single-family homes are required to be sprinklered if there are 30 or more dwelling units on a road, and we ran into that and required sprinkling with it was the Roseberry Ridge subdivision that was extending the, I forget the name of the road, but it had been a phased development, and it was extending the same continuous road to serve earlier subdivisions, earlier dwelling units that were created earlier in the phasing process. And when it got to the top of the hill, the homes were required to be sprinklered, and I think that case was before you in 2008.
I must have missed that meeting. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I may not have the exact subdivision name. I know it was a ridge. And they put a stop sign at the bottom of the hill. I don't know if the members, any of the members remember that part of it, but they were required to put a stop sign at the end of this long hilly road, and they did it the next day. It was Mr. Steiner's property up in Eagle River near Meadow Creek. And that's as much as my memory bank can bring forth.
Thank you.
Mr. Krieger?
Thank you. Through the chair, Ms. O'Brien, my memory banks aren't working that well either, but I remember, since I'm looking at this 2006 meeting on page 63, that this is the third time now this particular property has come, and the second time that I've been aware of it. When we did it in 2006, did we put a similar note on any of the 4 lots that were created by that plat? That is, a note to require sprinklering, or strongly recommend sprinklering, that is?
Madam Chair, Mr. Krieger, no, we did not. That note wasn't required. And we're not required, we can't require sprinkling, but the municipality is strongly recommending it, both in the homeowner's documents and in the note on the plat. So we're not requiring it, but it started out as 4 lots, and since 2001, when this was initially heard, the International Fire Code has undergone revisions to strengthen some of the fire safety aspects. So it's within the last, I'd say, 3 to 4 years where we've been hearing about 30 or more dwelling units you need to sprinkle if you don't have access to public water.
A follow-up question, if I may. Are there any more lots that could be developed from this subdivision? I mean, at some point in time, shouldn't we be wondering about putting a real road in there? Now we're up to 9 lots.
I don't believe that this can be further subdivided at this time because the minimum lot size is 5 acres. There is Lot 1C I don't have that acreage. I don't have that acreage, I don't believe. Wait a minute. I might have it on a historical plat. On page 77 was the original subdivision, and Lot 1 is about 4.3 acres. That configuration may have changed with the subsequent plat.
One C on
Excuse
58.
me, do you mean 43 acres?
Yeah.
I couldn't read it.
Yeah.
One C on page 58 is 21.9 acres.
Okay. That lot could be further subdivided. The dwelling was basically placed almost in the center of that property by the area photograph on page 15 of the packet. It's right in the middle of that lot.
Thank you.
Mr. Krieger, did you have anything else?
No, I didn't.
Mr. Clark?
If the 30 lots is the breakdown area, that if they're supposed to be 5 acres apiece and you were to get the maximum out of that, you're not going to get 30 acres or 30 lots on that road.
Are there any other questions of staff? I have one question. On the top of page 8, you mentioned that there needs to be arrow points that call out these easements. I mean, there are a lot of lines in here, and nothing is identified. And I wondered if you wanted to add that to the drafting changes. That's one question.
Condition 2, amending the plat to show arrow points to each side of the various easements on the final plat. I put that in as a separate condition unless the board wishes to reword that.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just didn't find it. And then 8C says resolve the subdivision name. Is that because we're getting Lot 2A and 2B out of 1D?
Madam Chair, the original plat was Silverwood subdivision. Then there was number 1. Now we're back to Silverwood Hill Estates subdivision, and we've got Lot 2C and D, and I'm wondering if that should be number 3. And I did put that as a drafting change for the surveyor to, they double check the subdivision names when they are proofing the final Mylar, and I just didn't know if this needed to be in addition number 3, so there have been renumberings, and I thought we needed to clear it up.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Krieger.
One more, thank you. Through the chair, Ms. O'Brien, did you have you heard from this Eagle River Valley Community Council? We got on our desks something about an opportunity to comment on the case. Any information that you've heard from those folks on this?
Through the chair, Mr. Krieger, we got that email yesterday, the day before the public hearing. The deadline for getting applications in was in August.
But you haven't had any phone calls
No.
from Eagle River Valley
No.
Community Council?
But we write to the affected community councils, so it just seemed short notice to postpone this. The code requires that the applicant agree to any postponement. It would have to go to the next available meeting, which is the third meeting in October. Because we only had one case, somebody else took the room. So the next available time that the Platting Board could postpone this would be to November 4th. So we just got that request yesterday.
Thank you.
Mr. Clark?
Yes, and their request is to postpone it until after the October 14th meeting anyway. So it was kind of a interesting little blurb.
Anybody else? If not, we'll open the public hearing. And could we hear from the petitioner, the petitioner's representative, please?
Madam Chair, Board, and staff, my name is Mark Seward. I'm the authorized representative for the petitioner. I would just like to comment one of the answers that could not be here, but he wants to really thank Margaret for the good effort. They've been boxing back and forth on several items, and I can pretty much answer any of your questions that you brought up to staff to clarify. And also, we're pretty much in agreement with all the findings and would love to see the approval as Pat notes are stated and the staff's recommendations. There are a few comments I just wanted to make on since the fire issue and the number of lots it seems to be an important issue. I've done all the survey work on it. I've been up there every month of the year, and I've seen the trucks, the drilling trucks have been in there. There's comments from various trucking, plan by trucking, and I've seen them all in there sometime and other some annually, because they pretty much put wells on all the lots. Also, these trucks are 60,000-pound vehicles, and they're as large as any fire apparatus that's going to go in there. The area is not ever going to hit 30 lots in there. They might be able to get one or two more out of that large lot, but topography-wise, it's just not going to happen there. It could. And I know that at this time plans on not doing anything with that, but it could change, but they will never be close to 30. Topography would just prevent that. The Knox box is being changed. I guess it's a key issue. He's going to redo it for the pressure gate. That was an item there, but it wasn't the same brand, so he's going to resolve that. And the safety gates or the pressure gates or safety apparatuses anyway, 70 pounds of pressure they open. So the fire department knows that on any automatic gate, but you don't need a key to get in. Anybody can walk up and push the gate open and it'll work. The sprinklers, he's and I agree that we shouldn't be getting into building codes unless he owns the house with the sprinkler system. He's already modified the CCRs for strongly recommending sprinkling in the homes, and the plat note strongly recommending that too. And that's about as much as I think that can be done plotting-wise for us. And that's pretty much any comments. I've been on my reserve any time. Be glad to have to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Seward? Ms. Taylor.
Thank you. Through the chair, do you have any information on the original construction of the road?
No, I do not. I know it's a good D1 base, and I know it's a hard path. I've driven it. I have a four-wheel truck, and I did it two-wheel drive. The grade is no steeper than Skyline Drive going up to the subdivision. That's the very last little private land area above the river before you get into the park, and the radio towers are right above that. So, Skyline Drive is steeper than that in parts, but the construction of it, I didn't witness or wasn't involved in that. That was, all under the private development.
And do you have any information perhaps on an as-built of the road? How wide is it? How steep is it?
I know it follows it follows that corridor, the 60-foot access easement, it follows that very closely to the center line of that. The width of the road, I don't have an as-built, never as-built anything, but just I've known from setting lot corners, and I know where the survey lines are. They're alignment-wise, it's inside the corridor, grade-wise, that 10% area is true, but the width-wise, two vehicles, we passed two vehicles, no problem on, private vehicles. I mean, two dump trucks aren't going to pass. I mean, there's plenty of rooms where they could work, but two private vehicles, there's no problem. They would pass each other on it.
And how long is the road?
I think it's over 1,500 feet, and just about we're using this in dimensions of 527 or 377. It's over the 900-foot wall or whatever that is there. But it's just coming off the main, where the property line starts there, that's 527 feet long, so it's 1,500 plus or probably not really more than that.
Okay. And what kind of turnaround opportunities would there be for large vehicles like fire equipment?
Turnaround?
Correct.
The fire department has been right down to the end of the comments and at the very end of the cul-de-sac there on page, actually my recruit plat doesn't show as good, but on page 58 of the original plat, where it ends there, right the common corner of lot 3 and 4. They turn around there, and they didn't have any problem. And same with the solid jelly trucks and the crew or something like that. They have a statement where they just took in their 60-foot lowboy with their tractor trailer and turned around down there in that same area.
And that's the only potential turnaround on the road is at the very end of the cul-de-sac?
Pardon me?
And that's the only potential turnaround is at the very end of the cul-de-sac?
There would, yes, at the top, at the beginning of the road up in the northeast corner, the diagonal corridor coming down the private driveway, there's a turnaround there. There's no other, there's a turnaround on, there's an existing house on lot 4 on the western portion of the subdivision, directly north of our current plot. There's a driveway there that you can turn around, but the rest of the lots, they don't have driveways, turned in. And you can also, if that switchback is a very wide switchback there, a fire truck turning around there, they can do it backing up a regular vehicle. There's no problem at all.
That curve, that switchback right adjacent to this subdivision, that's the one where the fire department had to back up to negotiate the road?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Stewart? Ms. O'Brien?
Madam Chair, the width of the road is, the constructed road is approximately 20 feet wide, is what I was told.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, you have 7 minutes and 18 seconds. Well, since there isn't anybody else out there to speak, did you want to use your 7 minutes and 18 seconds?
No, thank you. I'm good.
All right. Then we'll close the public hearing, and the matter rests with the board. Can I have a positive motion, please? Ms. Stolpe.
Madam Chair, I move to approve case number S-11770-1 in the matter of the Silverwood Hill Estates lots 2A and 2B subdivision of one lot into two lots with variance from AMC 21.80.200 legal and physical access and AMC 21.80.330 lot frontage and access, approving the variances. Move to approve the variances.
Is there a second? Mr. Clark, would you speak to your motion, Ms. Stolpe?
Yes, I think it's clear that the issues regarding the variances have been addressed, dealt with. I move for approval.
Are there any objections to the motion? You object? Okay, then we'll vote.
Are we ready to vote? We're not quite ready to vote yet. If I may.
You still had comment.
I wanted to hear the comments of Ms. Taylor on her position if there's an opportunity.
On the variances, if we could, I would like to split them, I guess. My problem with the variances is the physical access. I don't feel we have enough information to assure myself that we have adequate physical access to this lot. If these were the only two lots being served by this road, it would be a different matter, but we're up to 8 lots already, and there's potential for more when the adjacent property subdivides. My concern is, at what point do we draw a line and say, this needs to be a real road, and we need to know what it was made of, what the compaction is, what the drainage looks like. I don't think that we've satisfied those questions yet. I would object to the variance from AMC 2180-200, but I do not object to the variance from 2180-330.
Do you want to make a motion to amend the motion that's on the floor?
So moved. Can I do that?
You can. Is there a second? Mr. Clark seconds. Okay, the motion on the floor is to split the I have no idea what the motion on the floor is. Separate the motion for.
Take one variance at a time?
Yes, that's it. Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes, and we'll take each variance separately. So the first variance is AMC 2180-200, legal and physical access. So do we need new? Okay. Will it still be Ms. Stolpe making the motion, or how does this? Where are we? Okay. So it's Ms. Taylor's motion. And Mr. Clark is the second.
Sorry about that. I have the main motion sitting there outstanding in my system. Then I have the amended motion that approved to split it. So then I can just leave the main motion and deal with it later in my system and set up 2 separate motions to vote on each variance, if that would keep it cleaner for you.
Well, I'm wondering if just to facilitate the issue, if I could just withdraw my motion with the approval of a second, and then that would just leave Ms. Taylor's 2 motions on the floor.
I think that's a good way to do
it. The second concurs. I think what we need to do is just withdraw the motion. That removes the amendment. Mm-hmm. So now we're without a motion. We can start a new motion.
Okay. May I have a positive motion, please? Ms. Taylor? Mr. Krieger?
Okay, I think I can tee this up, I hope. In case S11770-1, move to approve the variance from AMC 2180-200 regarding legal and physical access.
Is there a second? Mr. Clark. Mr. Krieger, would you speak to your motion?
Well, I'm sort of neutral on this. I don't know whether I support my motion or not. I'm still interested in the dialogue about whether or not it's time to draw the line. And I know we approved this plat 2 years ago with most of these lots on it. Now we're adding 2 more lots, but I am somewhat concerned with the questions that Ms. Taylor raised about the adequacy of the road. So that's a long way of saying I don't know how I'm going to vote.
Mr. Clark?
Well, we're adding 1 lot, not 2. In actuality, I intend to support the motion. I don't see that the petitioner there's no evidence that the road is not functional. The evidence that we have from the fire department indicates that it is satisfactory for their needs. And I do not see an additional burden needing to be placed on this petitioner to upgrade the road.
Ms. Taylor?
If I could add to my previous comments, what we do have is a statement from Project Management and Engineering that states Silverwood Hill Drive definitely does not meet the fire access standard. And I place a little bit more weight on the engineer's opinion of the condition of the road than I would on a firefighter's statement of the condition of the road.
Any other comments? Yeah, I'm going to support the motion. Mainly, I think, because there is not dedicated right-of-way up to the subdivision, so we're really only dealing with a small piece of the road as a part of the subdivision. And to make that 371-foot chunk a real road just doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, so if we're ready, we can vote as soon as we get there. Individual vote.
Madam Chair, is the motion on the floor is to approve this part? Okay, thank you.
Approve this variance, yes. Motion 6 yes, 1 no, 1 absent, and the motion passes. So may I have a positive motion on the second variance, please? Ms. Stolpe.
Madam Chair, in the case of S-11770-1, I move for the approval of AMC 21.80.330 lot frontage and access to a public street.
Mr. Clark seconds. Would you speak to your motion, please, Ms.
I
Stolpe?
spoke to it previously.
Thank you.
Intend to support it.
Is there any other discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes and the variance is approved. A motion for the plat, please. Mr. Krieger.
In the case S11770-1, Silverwood Estates, lots 2A and 2B, move the approval of the plat for 18 months subject to the conditions stated in 1 through 8 of staff's recommendations.
Mr. Clark seconds. Would you speak to your motion, Mr. Krieger?
Yeah, I'm going to support the approval of the plat, but I would like to note for the record that I am, were I to be on the board the next time this came up for subdivision and no improvements to the road had been made yet, I probably would vote differently on variances and on the approval of the plat.
Anyone else would like to comment? Is there any objection to the motion?
I object.
Okay. And so we need, would you like to discuss that any, or?
I object to approval of the plat for the same reasons stated with my objection to the variance. I don't believe that I'm not satisfied that the road meets the public safety standard.
Any other discussion? Since there's an objection, we need to vote on the... Motion passes and the plat is approved. Okay, that was the only case. Any persons to be heard? Reports? Board member comment?
I had a comment, if I may. I don't want to take the board's time other than a comment on this Lake Otis and Tudor subdivision. I didn't move to take it off the consent agenda, but I'm concerned that this has been postponed for a couple of times on a motion to reopen, and I'm wondering what's happened with the parties' rights to appeal, and, you know, why is staff attempting to reach an agreement? I mean, we've acted on this, and it seems to me we're done with it, but that's, I know there's nothing in front of the board to act on, but it's just curious that this keeps lingering.
Madam Chair, is that a question for staff?
Sure.
Yes.
Madam Chair, Mr. Craiglet, the motion to reopen the public hearing, the code says that when we get a motion of that nature, staff is required to put it on the next available agenda, and it shall precede all other business. It take priority over all other business. It is the applicants themselves who are asking to postpone this. The issue is basically, as mentioned in that memo, is the location of the access point to Tudor Road. Typically, the Platting Board does not make decisions like that. That is a road design decision. Without going into too much detail, this involves a number of contractual arrangements, both with the municipality and privately between the two appellants. The staff is trying to negotiate to the satisfaction of both the parties involved. One party does actually own property that was part of the plat. The other party does not. They withdrew their lot from the preliminary plat that finally came forward to the board. So it's really been the law department, Heritage Land Bank, which is a property owner, municipal survey, having continuous meetings with the individual property owners to try to come to some settlement of the location of the access. This also involves state DOT because they own this section of Tudor Road. They have to grant the driveway access permits, and they have to approve the location of the entrance or the driveway access to Tudor Road. So an agreement has tentatively been reached, but neither party is willing to actually withdraw the motion. to reopen the public hearing, and that's why it keeps getting postponed.
Any other comments? Motion to adjourn? All righty, then. We're adjourned.